Today, we're diving into the story of a global icon. It's a tale of secret recipes, relentless reinvention, and a founder who built a culinary empire at an age when most folks are thinking about retirement. From one single roadside kitchen to a worldwide phenomenon, this is the incredible story of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Just to wrap your head around how big this story gets, look at this number. Today, there are over 30,000 KFC restaurants serving up chicken in 150 countries. It is, without a doubt, a global empire. And that really is the big question, isn't it? How does a little roadside diner explode into a global empire? Well, to answer that, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning, to the man whose face is synonymous with fried chicken, a man who built a legacy one piece at a time. We're talking, of course, about Harland Sanders. Born way back in 1890, Sanders had already lived about a dozen different lives before he even touched his famous chicken recipe. I mean, the guy was a steamboat pilot, a railroad firefighter, an insurance salesman, pretty much a man who was constantly looking for his true calling. And at age 40, right in the heart of the Great Depression, he finally found it. He took over a Shell filling station in Corbin, Kentucky, and started serving home-cooked meals to tired travelers, literally from his own dining room table. His Southern-style chicken wasn't just another thing on the menu. It pretty quickly became the star of the show. Now, Sanders was a perfectionist, but he was also a really practical businessman. And he had a big problem. He was really unhappy with the 35 minutes it took to pan-fry his chicken to order. For a guy serving hungry people on the move, that was just way too slow. And this is where his genius for innovation really kicks in. In 1939, Sanders gets his hands on one of the very first commercial pressure cookers. He starts tinkering with it, modifying it, and he basically invents a pressure fryer. This was a total game changer. He could now cook his chicken in a tiny fraction of the time, sealing in all that flavor without sacrificing the quality he was so obsessed with. And this brings us to another super important point. That famous recipe for his chicken, it wasn't patented. It was, and it still is, a trade secret. And that is a brilliant business move, because while patents eventually expire, a trade secret can be protected forever, as long as you can keep it a secret. It's why, to this very day, that recipe is one of the most closely guarded secrets in the entire food industry. By 1940, Sanders had finalized what he called his original recipe. He was famously cagey about the ingredients, and he'd often say they included salt and pepper and that the rest stand on everybody's shelf. That mystique, of course, just made the legend even bigger. So, with a perfect recipe and this revolutionary cooking method, Sanders had a winning formula. But a new challenge was barreling down the road, literally. The brand new interstate system was about to bypass his restaurant entirely, forcing the now 62-year-old Sanders to reinvent himself all over again. And this crisis, it led to the business model that would change fast food forever. Instead of waiting for customers to come to him, he took his recipe to them. In 1952, the very first Kentucky Fried Chicken franchise opened. And get this, it wasn't in Kentucky. It was in Salt Lake City, Utah. Sanders crisscrossed the country in his famous white suit, cooking his chicken for restaurant owners. The growth was just explosive. By 1963, there were 600 locations, making KFC the largest fast food chain in America. And that iconic name? It wasn't even the Colonel's idea. A sign painter named Don Anderson, who was hired by that very first franchisee, came up with Kentucky Fried Chicken. It was perfect. It brought up these images of Southern hospitality and made the product feel special, authentic, and maybe even a little bit exotic. This insane growth was kind of a double-edged sword. It was bringing all this incredible success, but it was also becoming way too much for the aging Sanders to handle by himself. So in 1964, he made this huge, monumental decision to sell the American side of the business he had poured his entire life into. He sold the company for $2 million to a group of investors. Now, that might not sound like a ton of money today, but back then, it was a fortune. But more importantly, the deal wasn't just about the cash. Sanders made sure he got a lifetime salary, and crucially, he would remain the living, breathing face of the company. His image was the trademark, and he was the official quality controller, a role he took so seriously that he would often just show up unannounced at restaurants to chew out owners for not meeting his super high standards. After the sale, KFC started on this dizzying journey through the corporate world. It was like a game of musical chairs. In 1971, it was bought by Harland, a spirits distributor. Yeah, seems like a weird match, but Harland wanted to diversify, and KFC was a red-hot brand. The problem was, they didn't really know anything about the restaurant business, and it started to show. just over a decade later, the brand changed hands again. This time, it was bought by R.J. Reynolds, the tobacco giant. This was actually part of a bigger trend in the 80s where tobacco companies started buying up food and beverage brands to diversify as, public opinion on smoking started to sour. And finally, in 1986, came the buyout that would define its modern era. PepsiCo bought Kentucky Fried Chicken for a staggering $850 million. For the first time, KFC was owned by a company that actually understood the fast food game, and they paired it with their other brands like Pizza Hut and Taco Bell to create a global powerhouse. With the marketing power and, let's be honest, the deep pockets of PepsiCo behind it, the brand was ready to go from being an American success story to a true global giant. So, one of the first big strategic moves under the new ownership was a name change. In 1991, the company officially switched to the initials everyone was already using, KFC. The main reason? To put some distance between the brand and the word fried, as people all over the world were starting to become more health conscious. And this really shows you the global strategy. I mean, sure, the first UK location opened way back in '65, but the 1987 entry into China was a landmark moment. KFC became the first Western fast food chain to open there. That was a super bold move that paid off big time. China is now KFC's single biggest market. Later on, PepsiCo spun off its restaurant division, which eventually became the company we now know as Yum Brands. Of course, it hasn't all been a walk in the park. Like any huge global company, KFC has definitely faced its share of modern challenges. They've been targeted by animal welfare protests, they've faced accusations about contributing to deforestation in their supply chain, and they even dealt with a massive logistics failure in the UK that led to a chicken shortage, forcing them to temporarily close hundreds of their own stores. So, looking back at this entire incredible history, from a single dining room table to a corporate behemoth, it leaves us with a really fascinating question. What's the real secret ingredient to a legacy that lasts? Is it the stubborn, quality-obsessed vision of a founder like Colonel Sanders? Or is it the ability of a brand to adapt, to evolve, and to be scaled by massive corporations in ways that the founder never could have even dreamed of? It's something to think about.